So, as we just said, realism begins with this idea of human nature that I can really only count on myself, this idea of self help. So, in global anarchy, how does the realist see states interacting in the global anarchy? So, there is no global government. That is the definition of this. So, let's say that two states have a dispute with each other. Like, for example, right now, if I have a problem with, say, my neighbor, if I have a dispute with them, I could possibly talk it out, or I could call the police, and the police will come and settle it. I have this government I can sort of turn to and the police will settle it in a way that there's really no sort of question about. Now, let's say two states have a problem with each other. How do they solve that problem? The answer is, without global government, for the realists, disputes are ultimately settled with force. The only way you can really settle this is with force. So who is right in this situation matters less than who wins the war. In other words, it's something you might have heard before, might makes right, essentially. And it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What matters is whether you can defend yourself or defend your position. So states are going to turn to self-help. It'd be great if I could find others who would come along with me to fight on my side, but I can't trust them. So I can only rely on myself for survival. And so what that means is that each state in the world is doing everything they can to seek power and security. That's the whole thing. International relations for the realists is all about states doing this right here. So, if I say realism to you, then you should think one word, and that is this word right here, power. The key element of survival for the realist is power. Is it about being right? No. Is it about, that's pretty good. Let's just say that. It's about power. It's about whether you can, just go back one second, whether you can essentially settle your dispute on your side or not. So it's about force, about power. Power is both an end and a means. So let's just talk about this for a second. All right, so here I am in the zombie apocalypse. I don't trust anybody. How do I survive in the zombie apocalypse? Well, what I know now is that if I ever bump into somebody, it doesn't matter if I'm in the right or not. What matters is whether I can have more power or defend myself against their power. Let's just say I'm not even a jerk. I'm a nice guy. But I still have to defend myself against their power. So I need to get enough power for protection and survival. This is a means. I'm using this for survival. It's a means to survival. All right. So now here's the thing. How much power is enough power? Like, how do I know I have enough power to defend myself? Well, the thing is, I don't know enough about everybody around me. They might have 3 guns. They might have 100 guns. I just don't know. So how much power is enough? So let me ask you this. How much money is it enough? At what point do you say, I have enough money, I'm going to stop here? The answer is, there's always a little bit more that you need. Same thing here. I don't know how much power is enough. And so power becomes an end in and of itself. The gaining of power, the achievement of power becomes something that states do as well. And this all leads to that thing you just read by Thucydides. Thucydides, sort of the quote that you can take away from Thucydides that sort of encapsulates realism is the strong do what they can, the weak do what they must. So if this is world politics, what do you want to be? What do you want your state to be? Do you want your state to be strong or do you want your state to be weak? The answer is, of course, you want your state to be strong. That's true for every state. Even weak states want to be strong. They're just not. And they can complain and they can resent and all that kind of stuff. The problem is just that they have to do whatever they can to survive. The strong have more choices. That's the whole bit about realism. It's about this sort of states are out there trying to get power. They're trying to defend themselves against other powerful states. They're trying to make sure other states don't get more power than them. That's the whole thing. So what about the UN? Where does the UN fit into this? Where does diplomacy fit into this? Where does economics fit into this? It's very simple. Institutions like the UN, diplomacy, economy, all these are just tools to attain more power. Does the United States want a growing economy? Absolutely. Why? So they can take that economy and turn it into military power so they can do whatever they want. That's realism. And of course, one of the great sort of examples of this is nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are sort of power to the nth degree. All right. So where does that take the realist then? How then is this? So this explains sort of the realist. This is sort of how human nature is, how it sort of translates into how states act, what they want. They want power to survive, and then of course they just want power because power is really the only game in town. If I mention anything else to you, it's either a tool to achieve more power or it just doesn't matter that much. So then how does this work out into patterns in the world? Like, is it just going to be just a hot, Fortnite battle royale where all states just enter the thing and 20 minutes later one state emerges on top? The answer is no, because states don't want to die. So where that takes us is here. The end result is going to be this thing called the global balance of power. No state. So although we talked just now about every state wants to get power, no state also, the other thing we can say about it is no state wants to be dominated. But each state is grabbing as much power as they can. So how do you balance this whole thing out? So what happens is states are going to temporarily ally to keep other states becoming dominant. Ally might be the wrong word here. It's not that I'm buddies with you because I can't trust you. It's just that we both want the same thing, and that's the other guy. So here's A, here's B, and then here's C, who's got a lot of stuff. These guys aren't like going to become fast friends or anything like that, but they both have an interest in making sure this guy doesn't pick them off one by one. So they temporarily team up. But here's the thing. If A gets a lot of power and C starts to lose power, then B and C are going to team up against A. So there aren't like friends here. There aren't alliances in that sort of sense. It's alliances in the same way like on a reality show you have alliances. There's not a lot of trust there. And that's going to be the balance of power, is that states are going to balance power so that, again, let me put my A-B situation up here. C can't do whatever it wants because A and B can push back against C. A and B can't do whatever they want because C can push back, which means that everybody doesn't die, but it's still about power survival. It's this balance of power. So when are things going to get dangerous? Things are going to, here this is pretty peaceful because C has no benefit attacking these guys, and these guys have no benefit attacking C. That's peace. Balance of power equals peace. When are things going to be messy? Things are going to get more dangerous when there's an imbalance of power. Let's say that C gets even more power. Now it's got a reason to attack these guys, or these guys have a reason to attack before C gets all that power. So if all this is true, then what does U.S. national security mean? What does Czech national security mean? What does Brazilian national security mean? What does Bangladeshi national security mean? It all means the same thing. Get lots of power and or ensure there's a global balance of power. If there's an imbalance of power, make sure that you're the one who has the most so you can gain the most from it. That's essentially it. Essentially, the realist says all this international relations is just a global competition that is never ending. Peace is just because states can't get a benefit from each other by attacking each other. But that'll go away as soon as they can. Okay, so that's realism. Now let's take a look at liberalism and take a look at Immanuel Kant.